Okay, hello, how are we all doing? So, today we're doing a demonstration for both chapters 7 and 8 of Switching, Routing and Wireless Essentials. And so it's about DHCP for IPv4, as well as SLAAC and DHCP for IPv6. So, as you can see, I've got a bit of a topology going on here. I've got 4 routers. I've got 1, 2, 3 LANs, and so we're going to implement a couple of different solutions here. Now, to start with, I've actually set this server up as a bit of a multi-purpose device. I know it's off of the ISP, but anyway. And so as far as that's concerned, so it's got a static IP address, as you can see, 10.1.0.2. It's also got a static IPv6 address, and that should hopefully all work. Did last time I tried it. But basically I've set it up as a DNS server to start with. And so as you can see, I've got www.cisco.com there. And I've actually got 2 records, one for IPv4 and one for IPv6. And so we can test that out a bit later. And of course it is actually the web server itself. Now, of course, when it comes to an IPv6 record, it should be a quad A record, but that doesn't seem to be an option. And so an A record does work, though. I have tried it out previously. Now, I've also set this server up as a DHCP server. Now, if you just plonk a generic server on the network, it will actually have this server pool already very partially configured. And so it will, of course, know what address. As long as you've got a static address on the host, it will actually figure out these 2 bits at the very minimum. You then need to just configure the default gateway and the DNS server, which of course is itself. And here, oh, okay, I could have sworn I set a different start address, but anyway, so we'll have a start address of 10 and the maximum number of users 80. So actually we might do 20, hey, just so it goes from 20 through to 100. Could have sworn I'd set that to 10, but anyway. And so that's that pool. Now I'm also going to do Dhcp Relay from this network here, so I've actually set up another pool. And so this pool has the IP address of this router here for the gateway. There's only one DNS server in the network, and it's this one. Starting at 20 with 80 addresses, and away we roll. And so that's another pool that we'll be able to use, and we'll do Dhcp Relay with that. Now there's also Dhcp version 6. I tried to, I'm still learning my way around getting this to work, but I think I've got it working a little bit, but I don't know how to set a gateway. And it's actually using the DHCP server as the gateway setting, which is of course wrong. But anyway, but we can have a quick look at that now. And so if we go to the host here that I've got hanging off of it, it's already gotten an address. So I'll just static it out and then click DHCP, and it's gotten 19. Okay, whatever. Let's have another look at the server. I'm not sure why it's showing 19. It's not saved it. Oh, of course, I didn't save it. 20. Save. There we go. It's probably what I did last time. All right, so let's go back to the host. Go static. Whoops. Go static. And go DHCP, and so now it's gotten 20. And so it knows the gateway and it knows the DNS server. I've also the DHCP there, as I said, for IPv6. I'm going to say it's gotten an address. That's nice, but it's actually fixed it. maybe there was a router advertisement. And so now it's working properly. Okay. All right. No. It's flicking back and forth. Very strange. Anyway, as I said, so that's just how you would often set up a DHCP server. But of course, on these other networks here, we don't have any servers, and so we're having a look at other solutions. All right, so solution one is to actually set up a DHCP v4 server on router 3. And so as you can see here, once we're in global config mode, we have to exclude addresses that we want set aside for static addressing. And so I've done a couple of sways there. So 1 through to 10, as well as 254, just because I can. I'm not using 254 at all. And so then from there, you need to create a pool, and I'm calling it LAN pool 4 because it's subnet 4. And of course, I've set the router, and the only DNS server, of course, is that server there. We're just using example.com as a domain name, and away we roll. So at the moment, if we look at the hosts, I think I've got them static at the moment, but that's fine. So let's apply this and see how we go. So I see no errors. That's all good. Will it work? No, it will not. All right, it's taking some time, but it's got a 169 address. Now, I intentionally left the command out. Now, of course, if you watch the video for chapter 7, I actually mentioned that there's the network command is the one that is most often left out by students. And so I'm doing this just to give you a bit of an illustration. And so I did everything in this pool except for the actual network number. And so this pool actually doesn't know what addresses belong to that network. And so that's why it didn't work. So I've excluded a whole pile of addresses, but yeah, it doesn't necessarily apply to that pool because they're sort of generic. So I'll throw this in the router now. Go paste. Again, no errors. You can do a show run if you like. And as you can see, DHCP's pretty close to the top. There's your excluded addresses. There's all your config, and as you can see, put network number 1. It's the most important line, actually. It often gets left out, which is, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure why that is, but a lot of people seem to do it. And so hopefully it will work now. So, of course, the gateway settings for that, so that's all good. And away we roll. Now let's try that host. It's already found an address. So it's sent another request, and it's working nicely. All right, so let's go to this one. So now it's static. And so it's gotten 12. Now we might actually have an error on this router. Because the 11's the first one. Don't worry. Yeah. All right. So that's actually working quite nicely. And so I suppose we could always try web browsing. It knows who its DNS server is now. So www.cisco.com. Hasn't spoken that far yet. Might take a little time. Taking a lot of time. But hey presto. And so basically it's done DNS resolution. Of course, it's the same machine as the DNS server, but anyway. And so it's now been able to resolve that address to be 10.1.0.2. And so that's the web server it went to, and away it rolled. And so that's working nicely. Now, of course, another part of what goes on with DHCP is relay, and so remember I've got this DHCP pool for LAN 1, and so it's 1.1 as the router. It's still the same DNS server. The range is going to be from 20 to 0, and 20 to 100. And then away we roll. Now, basically, for DHCP relay, you need to tell the router who its DHCP server is. And so again, it's this 10102 server. And so for IPv4, the command is IP helper address 10102, and away we roll. And so, well, let's just try and do DHCP at the moment. It will fail because there's no DHCP server there. It's going to get a 169 address, and there you go. So let's throw this config into router 1. So for interface G0/0, which of course is what's connected there, we've told it its helper address, and let's have a try. So let's try again. It's gotten an address. That's nice. And that one's gotten an address as well. And so again, we could try the www.cisco.com. Oops. Without the typo, preferably. And work on a treat. So that's IPv4 DHCP sorted. So that's a full DHCP server on the router, and this is how we can use a DHCP server that is remote, not on the same subnet. Oh, sorry, this is how we do it. All right, now IPv6. Now we'll have a quick look at the router. I've already got the config here, and so you'll notice whereabouts is IPv6 unicast routing is already on. So of course that makes it an IPv6 router. I've got a link local and your global address as well. On the interfaces that are busy, I've also got some default routes and static routes going for both IPv4 and IPv6. That's how it's getting to that server. Don't have to worry too much about that yet. And so basically, the default settings for IPv6 are there. Of course, it's got addressing, which of course I had to put in. But apart from that, it's behaving as a default machine. And so if we go here and go automatic, it will actually use that router solicitation message and figure out for itself what addressing it's got. So that's nice. Now, there's no DNS server entry there. And so that's poor, I suppose. Now, so what we can do is do a stateless DHCP server. And so here, oh, we've already got, don't actually need that. I meant to delete that. I've already done it. So we're creating a DHCP pool called IPv6 stateless. It's an IPv6 one. And we're just specifying the DNS server, which again is the IPv6 address of that machine. We're still using example.com, and away we roll. Now, of course, that's nice, but we also need to tell we need to change the router advertisement message so it sends out a message saying, if you send a DHCP request, you'll get other information or some more information. So that's basically what we're looking at doing there. And so that's basically what we need for that. So again, it's router 3. So you can see the commands are going in. No problems. Show run. And so there's the IPv4 DHCP. Here's the IPv6. And you can see now that we've got the one thing I didn't mention is you actually need to bind the DHCP server to an interface, and so that's what's happened there. Is the IPv6 DHCP server, IPv6 stateless, and of course the flag, and so that's in the config as well. Okay, so let's have a look at the settings. And so now we're learning the DNS server, which is progress. So what I'll do is I'll actually turn IPv4 off. It won't have an address. And so let's use the web browser again. And so now, because it doesn't have an IPv4 address, it had to use its IPv6 addressing. And so it went through, it did a DNS request, and then it's actually loaded the web page using IPv6 as well. So that's working quite nicely. So here, of course, because of there's probably been a router advertisement that's gone through, it's now said you can get other information. It would have sent out a DNS request and learnt that. So of course we could do IPv6 config/all, and let's see what information it has. And so it's learnt the domain name, and it's learnt the DNS server from that stateless pool. So that's all very nice. Now, this DHCP v6 here is behaving strangely. I was really hoping I'd be able to get, I was actually going to do Dhcp Relay with it as well, but yeah, it's having trouble. Now, of course, here, this is a managed one. This shouldn't actually have been getting DHCP info at all, because it's actually still the default setting. So if we do show run here, you can see that the gigabit interface has an IPv4 address, it has its IPv6 addressing, and nothing else has happened. And so it shouldn't have actually, this should be sending out its router advertisements, but of course it's actually shouldn't be sending out the host shouldn't actually be sending out a DNS request. But anyway, so let's get that in. And so now we're changing the flag to managed to be on. And so with that, yeah, it should then do a DNS request, DHCP request, and away we roll. But yeah, that gateway is behaving strangely at the very best. And so, yeah. So that's the way it's going at the moment. But anyway, so it is sort of working, but yeah, yeah, the config for IPv6, DHCP v6 is just a little bit strange. And yeah, I haven't found anywhere we can actually tell it where the gateway is. So it should actually be learning its gateway from the router advertisements. And it does seem to appear occasionally, as we saw. So if we look at this one. We're using FE84 as the link local address, and that's what should have been used, but it's just not coming up, so I'm not understanding why, and I'm going to have to get my head around it. Whether there's some problems with it in Packet Tracer, I'm not sure. Excuse me. The dreaded lurgy. Anyway, so from that was pretty much all I was going to do with DHCP and SLAAC. It is very cool. I'm going to say when it comes to Cisco, they actually advise the stateless DHCP because you could actually use this pool for all of your subnets that are on your router, and so that would be very easy. All you'd have to do is just have this line in all of your interfaces, and then it would just work nicely. Well, you need this line you need both lines, of course, but and so you learn your addressing statelessly from your router, and that works nicely, and then you can just pick up that extra information that's required. And so, DNS server and name are the most basic information you need, and yeah, that would work nicely. So that's it for this session. Of course, next session is chapter 9, which is first hop redundancy protocols, and so we're going to look at how we can have more than one router on the same subnet and actually build in some redundancy for that. And I'm going to also revisit spanning tree, because you can get very clever with when you've got redundancy on your routers as well as your switches. You can sort of build it to work nicely together, and it'll work a treat. All right, so that's it for today. I'll catch you all next week for the next topic, and of course that's the last one we're doing for a little while. All right, have a nice day. See you later.